welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Connie from FAFF Designs. I'm a furniture painter and I'm also a brand ambassador for Dixie Belle Paint. In the video today, I'm going to show you how to turn this into this. Enough of the camera trickery. I'll show you how I did it. It's really easy and it gives you a beautiful washed pine effect. So stay tuned to find out how I did it. First up, as always, is prep. These bedsides were waxed. I do have a video on my channel of how to remove wax, which is why I am fast forwarding through the majority of this. But essentially I scrape it, remove it with white spirits, clean and then sand. So that's the outside dealt with. Next up was the insides. The interiors of these had been already painted with, I think, what was a gloss paint. It was really tough. So I cleaned it with Dixie Belle's White Lightning and then I gave it a really good sand. The fact that this did not want to be removed meant that it was sort of stable enough for me to paint over the top of it. I did do a scratch test on the first bedside that I did to ensure that the silk would stick over the top of the paint, and providing that I did give it that key and give it a really good sand, it adhered absolutely fine. So to just basically neaten the interior up and save me having to strip all of that awful gloss paint, I decided to paint it in silk all-in-one mineral paint in the colour Serenity. If you are painting the inside of a piece, it can help to kind of flip it upside down and on its back just so you can get in all the corners. This took 2 coats of Serenity to give me full coverage, and the bonus about using silk on the inside of a piece is that it has the inbuilt stain blocking primer and it also has a built-in top coat. So I just painted away and didn't need to seal it. It's super durable and it kept all those bleed through issues at bay. As you can tell, the backs were also in pretty poor condition. I stripped most of the gloss paint off, but again, it was really stuck in the grain, and without using a chemical stripper, it just wasn't coming off. So I decided to paint the backs as well. It's not something that I always do, but I really just did not want to start stripping these with chemical strippers. So I painted them in the same colour to match the interior. Now for the fun part. I am using a brand new shade of Voodoo Gel Stain from Dixie Belle called Au Naturel. This is going to give me a really pretty bleached effect on the pine and neutralise those orangey yellowy tones. So I'm going to stain the door first, and I've decanted some of the stain in a bowl, and I'm going to use one of the new Foam and Dandy applicator brushes to apply the stain with. The nice thing about these brushes is that obviously they don't have bristles, it's a foam pad, so there are no brush strokes to contend with. It distributes the stain really nice and evenly on the surface, and it gives you a nice even finish. So I am applying this stain straight on top of the bare wood. The reason I stripped this back is because the original finish was waxed. The stain that I'm using is a water-based stain, therefore it won't sit over the top of a waxed finish. So that's why I stripped these cabinets back before I could even start doing anything else to them. But staining wood is always going to be one of those that has quite a lot of variables. It can depend on the existing factory finish. It also depends on the tone of the wood as to the outcome of the colour that you get. Having said that about all the different variables that you can get with stained wood, one rule of thumb is that you generally tend to work with the direction of the grain. So this door that I'm working on, there's obviously different panels that make up that door. I'm just trying to work the wood stain and brush strokes with the grain of the wood as opposed to against it, because this can kind of fight the wood grain and give you a little bit of an uneven finish. Okay, so back to the main cabinet. The interior has dried, and if you remember seeing earlier on in the video, I didn't tape off any of the front there, and I'm just running my sander, before I stain it, I'm just running my sander over the edges to make sure that line is really, really crisp and clean. You can tape it off if that's what you prefer. I just do it this way because I always try and save masking tape where I possibly can. So all this I'm doing here is just cleaning up those edges where I've slightly gone over with the blue colour from the interior. Okay, so I can stain the rest of the bedside now. And again, I'm using the Foam and Dandy applicator brush. This is the largest size because I've got quite a lot of flat spaces. So the larger one is just going to get the job done quicker. Again, just moving with the direction of the grain so that we get nice, even coverage of the stain. And again, on the side panel, you can see how well this stain is covering that orangey pine. It's just going to eliminate all of those orangey yellowy tones and give it a really nice neutral bleached wood effect finish. And believe it or not, that is it. So I did one coat of stain on the entire bedside. I'm now using a Foam and Dandy brush applicator to apply my top coat. So I'm using Dixie Belle's clear coat in satin just to give it a really, really nice sheen. Again, working with the grain because the grain is visible. Obviously we've not painted these, it's not a painted surface, it's a stained surface. So working with the grain, and again, these brushes are fabulous with Dixie Belle's top coats. If you struggle with top coating for whatever reason, streakiness or patchiness, I highly recommend giving one of these Foam and Dandy brushes a go because it did it super quick and gave me a really nice even finish. And to add a little bit of interest on the back of the cabinet, I thought I would give it a little bit of stencil detail. So if you struggle with stenciling in silk, which I know some people do, then I have a little tip for you. So if you mix a very small amount of sea spray in your silk mineral paint, give it a good old mix, then it thickens the paint ever so slightly and gives you a really, really good medium to stencil with. It just means that you are less likely to get bleed through and it gives you really nice crisp lines. So although we have a slightly thicker mixture than just the paint on its own, so we've mixed the sea spray in, we've made a slightly thicker mixture, you do still need to take the majority of paint off your brush. I'm using the Belle brush, which is a natural bristle brush, and I've just got a rag in my hand to basically take the excess paint off the bristles. You want your bristles almost dry. 9 times out of 10, the reason that you get bleed through when stenciling is because you have too much product on your brush. So my technique is to add the paint mixture on the bristles and then remove it all onto a rag. It might seem crazy, but that is just the way that I do it. Removing the excess just eliminates bleed through issues and gives you nice crisp lines. The stencil that I'm using is called Enchanted Garden, and it's a brand new stencil design from Dixie Belle Paint. I will list all the products in the description below, as I always do, if you want to have a look at what I've used. Okay, so the stenciling's done. Again, because I use silk mineral paint, I don't have to seal that or give it an extra top coat because it's really, really durable enough. So I've just stenciled it, turned it around and left it to dry. And the final thing that I'm going to do to these is add a little bit of definition with brown wax around the door frames and in that recess area that you can see I'm working on at the moment. So because I have already sealed my stain with clear coat, I have obviously a barrier between the stain and the wax that I'm applying so that I can remove any excess. So I'm applying it fairly liberally. I only want a very small hint of wax just to give it a little bit more definition and a little bit of dimension. So I'm just applying the brown wax with a premium chip brush. Nearly forgot the name of the brush then. It's a premium chip brush, which again is a natural bristle brush. I love these for just adding a small hint of wax. They don't hold a huge amount of product, so it's really good for kind of giving it a little bit of a wispy, feathered look to the wax. And again, I'm just trying to get the bristles in the direction of the wood grain, because obviously the wood grain is still visible through the stain. If I was to do it in the opposite way, it would kind of fight against that wood grain. So I'm just kind of trying to keep all my brush strokes in the direction of the wood grain, and hopefully that will enhance it rather than fight it. I left the wax to dry for about 20 minutes while I popped and did some other jobs, and then I'm just going in with a piece of dry shop cloth and just removing the excess wax. And again, I'm moving in the direction of the wood grain to kind of emphasize that grain, not to fight it. I'm just removing the wax, and I'm also at the same time I'm just buffing it up so it gives a nice sheen to the finish. If you apply Best Dang wax and you really feel like you've made a mistake, the best thing about it is it's super easy to remove because it's water based. So if there was some areas on there that I wasn't happy with, if I'd gone too dark or applied the brown wax too thickly, you can actually get a rag or a wet paper towel and you can remove the wax altogether. Because it's water based, there's no solvents in Best Dang wax at all. So here's a recap of the before and that orange pine. Here's a little cheeky shot of the back with a stencil detail. And this is the final stage shot, which I absolutely love. I love this stain, love the colour finish. Think it's going to be super popular. Thank you for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. Make sure you are subscribing to my channel for more furniture flips.